So looking back on 30 years of INTRAC, I think one of the things that makes me most proud is the efforts that we've put into localizing OD consultancy. For me, it started 25 years ago in Malawi, where I went to work and train a team of young Malawians to provide OD services to the emerging civil society there. And it's lovely to see Angela Zamaere Smith, who's going to come and talk in a minute. She was one of the early cohorts, as well as a couple of other people on the call. Since then, INTRAC's also done face-to-face training programs for OD consultants from Kyrgyzstan, from Lebanon, from Palestine, from Indonesia, from Saudi Arabia, from Malaysia, from Mali, all over the world. It's something very, very close to our heart. When I look back on some of those early days, I do shudder when I think of I think of the quality of work, how little I knew about OD, and also how little I still know today when thinking about organizational change and the complexities of making that happen. But as I say, the thing that makes me proud is I think we put a finger on what is or what was a critical issue and still is today, because I think good practice, capacity strengthening requires a quality supply of national consultants who know the context, who speak the language, who are on hand to provide follow through. And 3 recent studies by foundations that I read last year, Hewlett, Packard, and others, confirmed that in many parts of the world, not in all parts of the world, but in many places, there is a critical bottleneck.
I'm now the Director of Programs and Partnerships at All We Can, a medium-sized UK NGO whose vision is to see every person's potential fulfilled. We focus on serving the world's most marginalized communities, and we're rooted in the Christian faith. All We Can works through partnership alongside our global neighbors most impacted by disasters, poverty, and injustice to enable flourishing and resilient communities. In 2014, we engaged Rick at INTRAC to help us think through how we could do development differently, putting partners and crucially partnership at the very heart of all that we do. 7 years later, we can proudly say that we are led by the priorities and development agendas of our partners and the communities that they serve. We work to help partners to fulfill their mission. So that means that our partnerships are based on relationship, not projects. We don't have a sector focus, but are led by the needs that partners identify in their communities. We provide flexible and unrestricted funding to cover both partner programs as well as their organization development. We commit to these partnerships for up to 15 years and aim to leave partners resilient and in a stronger place than when we find them. We recognize that when we start a partnership, the organization has already been on a journey, and we aim to make a net positive contribution as a partner and a critical friend for part of their journey, realizing that when we do exit, these organizations must then continue to meet the development needs of their own communities for many more decades to come.
So for me, the question is how. We have talked about this. There are spaces, and just to echo Rick again, he says, we have been singing the same song for far too long, but I think that there are some baby steps we can take. We can start to engage in very honest conversations around the issues of power in our organizations. We can begin to engage in conversations around power and our OD practices, our OD methods. This can be done. We take this from an individual level because I said it's complicated. Let's take it from an individual level. We bring it down to the collective level. See how we can have cross-team discussions on the issues of create spaces in our processes, our mess, in our different people with different forms of power, supported, guided to share their perspective equally and in very respectful ways. And I think that we have to be very inclusive. We have to be diverse and very intersectional in our OD practices. I don't think we can actually shift. I don't think we can actually change when a category of people are excluded. So I think that it is important that we look at change in a very intersectional way. And just to, my last point is around the fact that we have to learn. And in the process of that learning, I think that there's some unlearning to be done. And just to say that I think it's time to flip the script, because if we have been singing the same song for a long time, we need to flip the script. We need to sing the song differently.
And whilst acknowledging all of the pain and the suffering that the pandemic continues to cause, it's also fair to say that the last 2 years have done more for digital organisational development, or digital OD, than ever before. And one of the really positive benefits of that new digital landscape is a more fertile environment for shifting the power within international development and humanitarian response. In 1990, 0.5% of the world's population was online. Today, more than 30 years later, nearly half of the world's entire population of 7.7 billion people is online, and social media platforms are used by 1 in 3 people around the world. Now, obviously, while in some countries there's much lower levels of internet use than in others, increasingly citizens expect to be able to access services online. And this is really significant for the Shifting the Power movement, because its ultimate goal is not just to shift more decision-making, more funding, and more power to national NGOs, but to shift more decision-making and control to those communities most impacted by issues such as poverty, racial injustice, and climate change. Communities are increasingly demanding more voice, more accountability, more transparency when it comes to the services they receive, and digital organisational development is an important tool to help them get it. A good example of a new digital native organisation is called Loop. It was set up to collect digital feedback from citizens impacted by conflict or natural disasters, and feed this back to the organisations which are responding to the emergency. It's already working in the Philippines and has just set up in Poland.